Hello, Nick. It's good to have you today.
Hello, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for I don't I, we were just talking about coffee, so I do have leaded, which I have no business drinking. Do you have anything in front of you?
I finished it. Yeah,
You
it's
did.
I had a thermos this morning, so my
How big's
hands
the
are a
thermos?
little
It's a quart, a
it's
gallon.
it's big. Yeah. It's unreasonably large. Yep.
How many pots do you go through?
That is it equates to like one full French press because that's
Okay,
typically when I drink coffee away from home, I'll do a French press in the morning, put it into the thermos is like that
nice,
big.
nice.
And it
That's
fits
a
like
fun fact.
one French press. Yep.
I love
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So, how long have you been doing culture work, Nick?
Oof. Formally, probably the better portion of five years.
Okay.
That was around the time where uh, Farwell, company I used to work with, that
Mhm.
was around the time that they were getting much more intentional with their organizational culture and employee experience. So it's about 5 years ago where I kind of helped design the foundational building blocks to continue to have that organizational culture thrive. And it was already um, I don't want to say well established, but I think Farwell caught on pretty early to the idea of being able to hire to culture. And even though we didn't have a lot of that quantified and articulated in the early days, that just became kind of the fun process of trying to sink our teeth into what is the secret sauce, and let's try and make this a little bit more formal and scalable. So that was about 5 years ago with Farwell, and then CultureCon started shortly thereafter, which is now what I do full time.
Nice. Congratulations on that, by the
Thank
way.
you, thank
Exciting.
you.
And so I mean, is this a love for you? Is this a passion? Does this set your heart on fire?
It does. I think how I'm wired as an individual, I'm more extroverted in nature, and thinking back to childhood and all the way through college, I've always just gotten really energized by creating communities. And
Mm,
so I felt like that translated really nicely into the ecosystem of organizational culture and employee experience. And just um, for me personally, selfishly, I like feeling like I belong. I like
yeah.
feeling that I'm cared for and that I'm heard and understood, and that I can reciprocate those feelings back to others. So just on a personal level, it pulls all my levers up and down. So it was kind of a natural stepping block for me as a person and as a professional.
I love this. So I like fun facts, right? So this is from Forbes. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. So it says 75, this 74%, let me see if I can figure out when this was dated. This is last year. So summer of last year. 74% of people around the world rate their work environment as either complex or highly complex, according to a Deloitte survey.
Mm.
So, what is your reaction to that? And I mean, what does complex mean, and how does it dovetail into what you just said as far as community and team and culture of an organization?
So if I'm taking the statistic at face value, it's the individuals are just saying their place of work, the business, the operating environment is very complex. Is that a
Yeah, I mean,
fair?
it's saying, work environment, yeah, so I think that and it was in this culture study from Deloitte,
Yeah.
um
Well, my initial reaction is not to be super cliche about the whole pandemic, but I feel like i- i- prior to the pandemic starting, working in complex, fast-paced environments was already starting to become the norm, but many of us still had the benefit of being physically near other people that cultivated the water cooler
and
conversations
the belonging, like, that
and the
you mentioned
belonging.
earlier, right.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was easier to detach yourself from work, being around the office, and whether it's a trip to get coffee or a coworker coming in and you catching them in the hallway and just being able to have these meaningful, organic conversations that kind of take you out of the work mentality and get you more into the human mentality
Mm.
of growing relationships. And um, so now, with so many of us working remotely, which don't get me wrong, I think this is a beautiful new era of having these
Indeed.
hybrid models of living and working together. But what I noticed for myself personally was these complex, fast-paced environments aren't slowing down. So if we don't personally hold ourselves accountable to detaching ourselves from work for a little bit, and I saw you, Michelle, just recently had a post on going on a 3-mile walk the other
Yeah.
day. Where
Yeah, in
you
the morning.
in the morning, and things are crazy in your world, I'm sure, and it's
Mhm.
it's becoming increasingly more difficult for us to create the I don't want to say the excuse, but it's easy to justify why it makes sense just to stay in front of your computer a little bit longer and just get through that one task that's been bugging you all day. And it just keeps us so isolated and so heads down. And it removes us from these restorative activities, whether they're conversations, physical activities, relationship building. And so I think that's the abounding hope for all of us is now it feels like we've all kind of felt what the bad habits look like
Mm.
and feel like, and now we're on this journey to hold ourselves accountable to creating the right routines and habits so that we're really living.
Well, and I think so I've heard this, a friend of mine does this, teases his wife saying, "If you work a little harder, try a little more." In the interest of getting further, making more money or whatever, and then we get on this hamster wheel. If, to your point, if we're not showing up for ourselves, how can we show up for other people and be in that human mindset?
Mm, mm-hmm.
How do we do that if we're not able to do that for ourselves?
Ooh, I'd like to get your take on this.
Okay.
Okay. So one thing that I'm noticing, I don't want to make it sound like I'm sounding the alarm bells here, but as we've catapulted into this next phase of we'll just call it a little bit of a workers' revolution going on right now.
Yeah, for sure, that you could
For
call it
sure.
that.
Yeah. It feels like there's an increasing onus, for lack of a better word, uh, in an employee or a candidate's mentality, there's this increasing expectation that it's the employer's responsibility to bring to them just like this magical, perfect operating environment, company culture that's just going to meet them where they're at perfectly
Mhm.
and just sync up with where they're trying to go personally and professionally and create all the plans and all the properties to make that just like the most magical relationship. Now, uh, I do feel like employers are responsible for cultivating the right environment to help their workforce bring their best self to work every day,
Yeah.
appreciating their strengths, helping them feel heard, understood, showing them the path to growth. Those are all really important things. But where I'm getting a little bit nervous and what I want your take on, Michelle, is how I feel like the pendulum's swinging a little bit too far in the direction of it being the employer's maybe sole responsibility, and it needs to kind of come back towards us as individuals, as people, having the accountability to ourselves in knowing what our unique strengths are and our intrinsic motivators and making sure we have the right habits and relationships to bring that to work. Does that make
I
sense?
Yeah, it does, and what's tough about that is, so I've always operated from the mindset where it's as a team member, it's my responsibility to manage my work, how I show up, how I participate in the team. But not everybody feels that way. There are some
Mm,
people that feel like it is the company's responsibility. What's interesting about what's happening right now is the shift has created competition, so much competition that this idea of culture and its sexiness, whatever
hmm.
sexiness means, that will attract the people that these companies need. And
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I'd love your thought. So I think that that's really hard for a company or even a team leader. I mean, let's even set aside the company. If you look at the team leader's got to differentiate the work that they're doing within the team, how that individual can contribute, balance the needs and motivations of everyone in that team,
Right.
and then also stay competitive.
Right.
That's a pretty tall order
Big
for
time.
that team and for
Big
that
time.
leader and
Hmm.
organization for that matter, I think.
And to your point too, I don't have the exact statistic in front of me, but it's something, the number one determining factor on whether or not an employee stays at a company is their relationship with their manager. So yeah,
Indeed.
it's a heavy uh takes a lot of leadership, a lot of servant leadership to be an impactful manager of so many people. Yeah.
So, all right. So, team. If we look because we can look at organizational culture. But this is team. We're talking about team culture specifically here. I mean, if you look at a team culture and how would you define what does it mean to have a stellar team culture in your opinion?
I always liked the it has a little bit of a negative spin to it, so I'm reluctant to say it, but I've always liked the idea of articulating organizational culture or even just a microculture within a team.
Nice,
Um,
I like
as
that.
a culture, your culture is only as good as the behaviors that you're willing to tolerate. I like that a lot.
Ooh.
Um, and it does kind of have a little bit of like a heavy-handed feel to it, but that to me is truly really understanding the values of the organization, um, maybe even having some aspirational vision statements, mission statements, but then like really breaking down those leadership competencies, those soft skills that are important to your organization, and then really embedding it throughout the entire, of course, hiring process.
Mhm.
Recruiting to it is massive. Bringing people into the organization, knowing how to train them into this new ecosystem, and then finally the retention piece, which is massive. But then how that takes shape inside of a team every single day is I think really a testament to the idea of just like it's only going to be as good as the behaviors that you're willing to tolerate. And
So oh, that's
I
good.
sorry, uh,
No, 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 go ahead. I'll let you finish, then I
I'll
have a comment.
I'll
Go ahead.
round this off because this was another a really good eye-opening quote that I heard from a friend. Jonathan Yankovic is his name. He said, that famous Peter Drucker quote, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast."
Yep, I'm
Right.
familiar with that. Yep.
There's another one. I don't know if Jonathan made this up or if he got it from somebody else, but it said something like, "But process eats culture for lunch." So the idea was that
Hmm.
unless you have the right mechanisms and processes and support structures to uplift what that culture is, it's not gonna do anything. And
Mm.
that's when it gets kind of fun on a team level, is experimenting with whether they're different meeting formats or coaching mechanisms among your team. It's the processes and the structures that are really going to make it thrive. And that's been a fun thing for me to experiment with over the past couple years, is just kind of so long as it's true to the company's values, there are pretty cool meeting formats that you can have fun with, and delegating mechanisms, right? It goes pretty deep.
And that gets into the microculture, right? The micro I what was the word you used earlier? Was it microculture or was it
Yeah,
something else?
microculture. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so what we talk about is having, if as a leader, you can create the culture that you want, and you can lead in a different way and create processes in your amongst your team regardless of what the organization is doing. Do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Agree.
Cool. I'm glad
It's
that I'm not
pervasive.
leading people
Yeah.
astray. Wait, I'm not sure who's with us, but we've got so aim. This was a comment earlier. Amen to that. Manager relationships are the Achilles heel to so many cultural components.
Awesome.
Uh, I want to. tug on what you said earlier. So this is a fun story. I'd like to get your take on this. And I think it dovetails into what you said as far as what is the behavior you're willing to tolerate, right? So this is ages ago. Like I owned a massage therapy studio with my former business partner, and we had one male therapist and I think 15 or 20 massage therapists. And he was getting away with a lot of stuff, because there were a lot of people that only would see a male therapist.
Mm.
And so we looked the other way. We weren't paying attention. Well, we were sort of paying attention, but we were willing to look the other way because of that one fact. Well, it got to the point where it was like, nope, nope, we can't. This is not good. And we had prided ourselves on having a team of you participate and collaborate in the decision making process. We want you to show up and tell us, are we on point, not on point? We had made a decision to let him go. I had the dubious honor of having this conversation with him. And during this conversation, he pleaded, please, 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 please. I want to stay. I want to stay. And I had this wacky idea. We had a team meeting that night, where I said, you know what? If my partner is willing to entertain this, we'll put it up to the team. What's the team? And he's like, you would? I'm like, hey, she's got to approve it. And so we took it to the team. We said, all right, this is we have not done a good job on managing the behavior. We recognize
Mm.
it. Here's why. That's on us. We think it's the right answer to cut him loose, but there's ramifications for that. What do you all think? And they were like, it was kind of like Survivor. Um, you could vote or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was a tough thing to do, but
Mm-hmm.
we got to the point where we weren't willing to tolerate that behavior,
Yeah.
and it had the potential to be a cancer in the
Mm-hmm.
team.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why we put it out to the team, and the team then did say, "Got to go."
Nope. Okay.
What's your take on that situation? And could we have done something different? Is there a better way to handle that?
Well, I think it's important, but the fact that it sounds like you, your business partner, and your team were raising your hands and saying, hey, there's some shared accountability here. There were shortcomings that we had as the employer to kind of course correct, give feedback,
Yep.
have this individual understand like what it means to be a member of this team. So devoid of feedback or devoid of understanding that you're not meeting the standards of the company, I think that was a really fair and generous thing that you did, is saying like, hey, there's some shared accountability here. We're going to go back to our team and see if this is something that's can be, repaired, for
Right.
lack of a better term. If it would have been the case where the team said, yeah, let's give it another shot, but let's give it another shot knowing that these are the types of communications and feedback and structures that we can now give this former team member. On his end, obviously accountability too, and stepping back into a work environment where it's like, do they want me? Do they not want me? I guess we'll find out, is always a little bit of could be tumultuous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got somebody else saying, uh, I don't know who this is because it just says Facebook user. So I
It's
always
my mom.
somebody's out there. Whoever you are, we're listening. I always treat yourself. I always treat yourself and everyone else with hold on, and everyone else with loving, caring, kindness, and respect. When you do that, you're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say I think that's probably
Could not argue against that. Getting into the
no, no.
basic needs of a human being,
Exactly.
feeling loved and cared
Exactly.
for, 1000%.
Oh, it's Robert Anderson. Hi, Robert. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Robert.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, so You described a stellar team culture. What are some strategies to create that? So so you've got strategy and then tactics. So there's the tactical and then there's the strategic. Let's start with the strategic. What are your thoughts on creating a stellar team culture from a strategy perspective? And then we'll get to tactics.
The strategy is gooey because it gets into what Robert was just talking about, which is how are we going to
That's okay.
cultivate
Go gooey.
yeah
You can talk gooey. That's fine.
how are we going to cultivate feelings of belonging and having people feel
Mm,
like they're appreciated and cared for and valued for their unique contributions and strengths. So those strategies can take um, many different forms, but the one that's always kind of proven the most maybe selfishly beneficial to me is really taking time to have those intimate one-to-one relationship building conversations, which might not always be um, feasible in every place of work or industry. So I don't want to make it sound like it can be a blanket one size fits all. But when I think about the teams that I've been a part of that just hummed and there was
mm,
abounding trust and collaboration and a sense of community and connection, it's when we took time to really get to know one another as individuals, both from a manager to an employee level and an employee to employee level. Um, a tactic that we had a lot of fun with during the pandemic was a Jeopardy game night that we would do just about every month in the evening. So
nice.
we would take turns creating different Jeopardy categories, and then sometimes the categories would be aligned either to like one specific person. So like the questions were about that individual whose category it was named after, or it could just be like a shared hobby or interest of the team or group. And oh my gosh, that is such a fun way of building connection and getting to know one another on a deeper
Nice.
level. Because
That's cool.
once it got time to vote for like the next categories, is when you can really learn more about people. So
Did you
anyway,
keep score? Like, did you get Alex, I will take this for $500 or Nick,
yeah,
I will
yeah,
take this for $100?
correct. That is exactly what it was like. Uh,
Nice. That's fun.
there was one thing we didn't. Oh, if you got a question correct, you didn't keep going. We just kept alternating um, among the groups. So the name of the tool that makes this super easy, in case anybody's interested, it's called Play Factile. I think
Okay.
it's .com.
Play
Play Factile.
Play.
Yep. And then Factile is Factile.
.com?
.com, I think.
Okay, cool. Nice. I'm adding that. I want to read some of the stuff that's going on here. So we've got the empowerment of others and the nurturing of others is the beginning. You can always take a toxic environment and provide people with a new tool.
Yeah.
Interesting. We've got the trust and collaboration in a private space rather than talking to everybody in the building about an issue is an important one.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually,
Ooh,
we don't have time for a story, but I've had people do the shaming, like public
yeah,
shaming.
yeah.
Oh,
Not great.
not cool.
And whomever submitted that, I love that too, because there's a if there's an individual in the office who commonly it, I'm just using the word gossip because I can't think of a better term, but if there's somebody in the office who regularly provides gossip to you on a one-to-one basis or speaks negatively of another team member, um, over time it can start feeling like to the individual who's receiving all this gossip, like this method of back channel communications, I have to start wondering, do they talk about me this way to
Mm,
other people? And I think that's another thing that's on the one hand, it can be very therapeutic and cathartic to be able to vent to a colleague or a coworker on a one-to-one basis. But if that is a theme that happens over and over and over and over again, depending on the circumstances, you run the risk of somebody now looking at you as somebody who's just like a back channel communicator. And then you
Mm.
have to wonder, like, do they talk about me this way too to other people that I'm unaware of?
How would a
Um,
team leader handle that situation you just described?
so if you have a culture that's built on accountability, trust, I would lean into the idea of, hey, as part of this accountability value, we are conflict seekers. This is something that Farwell embedded as part of one of their core values. So seeking out conflict is actually, when we hear that, we feel like we get all those scary feelings of abrasive conversations and
Leaning into conflict, you
uncomfortable.
mean? You're
Yeah,
like, "Ah,
right, right.
me."
And I'm that way too. I don't want to make it sound this. I'm totally that way. But really, what conflict means is just trying to figure out the truth of the
Sure.
matter.
What's going
So if you're
on?
conflict,
What's
right, you're just
underneath the
trying to figure out
covers?
what's going on.
Yeah.
And you can do that in a way you can have hard conversations in a way that's grounded in respect and not overly abrasive or accusatory. You can do it in a way that's truly just trying to get to the truth of the matter. So to answer your question, the way you try and nip these, and I've fallen into it countless times in my past, going to people with venting and whatever else. But if the company can say, wait, hold on, we don't want to hear back channel communications. If you have a problem, you should be able to go to that individual and share where you're coming from in a way that's
Yeah.
grounded in respect. And that's the only way that we're going to continue to create a culture of trust and harmony, is we feel like we're comfortable enough to go to people and share those thoughts or concerns.
I'm gonna catch up on some of these. This one was really good. So, when people understand that you care about them and their dreams, they will care about yours.
Ooh, that's
Yeah, that's a good
deep.
one.
I
That I
like
know
that.
it is, it totally is, right?
Wow.
Um, and then we've got the undermining of others to lift you up is gossip.
Mm.
Uh, a person who undermines other people to lift themselves will undermine you.
Ooh.
I know, right? All these
That's
truth
kind of
bombs
that
here.
that was
I
a
don't know if
much
it's
more
Robert or it
succinct
might still be
succinct
Robert.
way
I
of
was sure.
saying, yeah, what I was trying to get at. That's it.
You have to shut down. You have to shut that down until the person they need to focus on what they're doing rather than the people around them.
Mm, mhm.
Uh, yeah, all I'll just finish. I'll round this out. So I appreciate all of the gossip that you're bringing me, but I hired you to do your job, not to try to tell me about how to manage the people around you. I don't appreciate being trying to undermine other people, as I'm sure you wouldn't want them to be doing that too.
To you. Yep.
Yeah, I that one's interesting because I think that like we talk about soft conversations, meaning
Mm,
showing up with compassion.
mm,
And so we in switching it from from you to I is and then potentially using SBI like situation, behavior, impact. And the
mhm.
intention is not to change their behavior. It's to
Right.
deliver the impact to you on what took place. So yeah, this is anything you want to react to in what I just shared.
No, I think they actually did a better job of succinctly saying what I was trying to get at. So that was much much better articulated. Um, no, I would just end off by saying one of the best tactics that the pandemic has gifted me, um, has just been getting outside with people. The
Mm,
whole walk and talk uh,
nice. I like that.
thing
That's
coming
a nice
back.
tactic. Yeah.
It feels so good. It's just like, I don't know. I have a, a better mental clarity when I'm out and walking around, and um, hard conversations actually feel much easier when you're like walking next to somebody. Um,
Moving.
and all the great conversations feel that much better too when you're out walking and moving with people. So that's been something that I've tried to embed in my weekly routine now, even during the winter time, still getting out and meeting with people for a little stroll.
I love that. I love that. I think that these are all great strategies and techniques to, I mean, the bottom line is showing up as a human first. And one of the strategies that I would suggest is understanding what motivates an individual, and that ties into what you said as far as the one-on-one. You know, what is motivating them to be there, to show up, to do whatever it is that they're doing, and it's largely individual, based on the person showing up for whatever reason.
Right.
And sometimes we just don't take time as if we're managing a team or leading that team, we don't take the time to understand that.
That's real. That's
It
real.
is. How can people get in touch with you, Nick, if they want to have more conversation around culture or dive into what you do and how you can help?
Oh, thanks so much for asking. Yeah, where you can find me these days is with CultureCon. So the website is cultureconusa.org. We are ramping up for our big flagship conference that we host here in Madison, Wisconsin. It'll be on August 10th and 11th this summer. We haven't been able to host it the past 2 years due to the pandemic, so this will be our celebratory return to being together in person, hopefully. So yeah, doing a lot of speaker application reviews right now, and we'll start announcing who those speakers will be in the next month or two. But it's shaping up to be a pretty exciting conference. We do more than just our big annual flagship conference. So please check out our website. Again, that's cultureconusa.org to learn more about our consulting services and our courses that we offer to our customers. And then if you ever wanted to book time with me, please try and grab me on LinkedIn and shoot me a message. Would love to connect with any other culture enthusiast, or as we've been calling ourselves, culture geeks at
I like that.
CultureCon. So yeah, thanks so much for
That's
asking.
awesome. Yeah, of course. And I just posted that, so it goes to all the places.
Awesome. Thanks,
And
Michelle.
yeah, thank you so much for the time, Nick. This is a good, fun conversation, and there's a lot of good tidbits for people to dive into their team culture and organizational culture if they so choose.
Thanks for having me. This was joy. Let's do it again sometime.
All right. Thanks, Nick. See you
Thanks, Michelle.
later.
Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.